Before this video starts, if you enjoyed this video, there are many more like it already on the channel with many more like it to come in the future, so subscribe. I am trying to hit 125,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I would really appreciate it. I upload daily on this channel, so if you're looking for some consistent basketball talk, this is the place for it. Also drop a like on this video, it only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference. Alright, strap in for this one because it's going to be sadder than a Pixar movie. Jimmy Butler has shot up the ranks in this year's postseason, and as both an NBA fan and someone whose job it is to watch the games, I've been, well, watching the games. And as I was watching these Jimmy Butler games, I kept thinking of the old days. For those of you who do not know, I am a Chicago Bulls fan. So I kept thinking, man, we really could have built around this guy, but the front office just moved on from him. Jimmy Butler started off his career in Chicago and gradually built himself up from a bench scrub to an all-star here. Unfortunately, however, due to the many years of poor roster construction, the team didn't get nearly as far as the Miami Heat did building around Jimmy Butler. So today I wanted to cover two things: what the Bulls should have done after keeping Jimmy Butler, if they did, and what they probably would have done. Because unfortunately with Garpax, what they should do and what they do are two very different things. Yes, I just said do. Shut up. So what if the Chicago Bulls kept Jimmy Butler? Let's find out. So I would love to pick up from the season before the Bulls signed Wade and Rondo. However, I think it's only fair to start in the offseason that the Bulls originally traded Jimmy. In this case, we pick up in the 2017 draft where the Bulls have the 16th pick. Now, the right pick here is obviously John Collins, but being that the Bulls already had two young power forwards in both Nikola Mirotic and Bobby Portis at the time, I don't think it would have made any sense at all to draft Collins then. So instead, I'm taking OG Anunoby, who can be a very good 3-and-D guy and play both forward spots. Then we let both Rondo and Wade go, and that clears up about $37 million in cap space. That's right, the Bulls could have just let those guys go and had a max slot available to put next to Jimmy. In a perfect world, with this year's free agency not being amazing outside of some top guys that I don't think the Bulls could have signed, I'm going to use that cap space on Drew Holiday and JJ Redick. And I'm also going to use a mid-level on Mason Plumlee. Drew I signed to a 4-year deal and JJ to a 2-year. So the starting lineup is Drew Holiday, JJ Redick, Jimmy Butler, Nikola Mirotic, and Mason Plumlee. I imagine OG would eventually take the starting power forward spot, but I don't think it's fair for him to take that over Nico right out of the gates just because Nico has been around longer. But OG Anunoby, Robin Lopez, and Bobby Portis are our bench depth. With this offense, Jimmy can be the lead ball handler while Holiday can become the secondary ball handler while working off the ball as well, and these two on the perimeter would completely harass guards and wings on defense. JJ and Nico would work as shooters, JJ coming off of screens, and for the mini games where Nikola Mirotic doesn't feel like making shots, which was very common, you can sub in OG at the small ball 4 so you can double down on the defense. Or you could also sub in Bobby Portis, who is better at scoring inside while still being a pretty serviceable outside shooter. This offense would be dynamic with two ball handling shot creators and playmakers, and then this team would be a force on defense with both Drew Holiday and Jimmy Butler on the perimeter. Now the question is, how far would this team go in this hypothetical? Well, looking at the 2017-18 season in the Eastern Conference, I'd say this team would win around 50 or so games, and they'd be a top 4 seed in the conference. Now, interestingly, this is the first year with Kyrie Irving outside of Cleveland, meaning the Cavs are at their weakest since LeBron has gone back. And outside of that in the East, with how good Jimmy is with this roster being put around him very well, I imagine they could beat the Celtics without Kyrie and even the Raptors. But as for if they'd actually make the finals, I think this matchup would be similar to the matchup between the Raptors and the Cavs that year, except instead of DeMar DeRozan shitting his pants, it's Jimmy Butler being clutch as hell and exceeding expectations. But even with that, I still think the Cavs win this series as LeBron just goes off single-handedly. And even if they did win this series, they're still getting smacked by the Warriors, so at the end of the day, no championship here. For the 2018 offseason, the Bulls would have around the 25 5-ish or so pick. Looking for some more offense off of the bench, I'd draft Landry Shamet, and in free agency with limited cap space, I'd sign Derrick Rose because A, it would be cool to have Rose back in Chicago, and B, this bench could use some shot creation, and Rose is cheap at this time. He only got a $2 million deal in this offseason and in real life, so it's a cheap option. So now the starting lineup is the same, except OG is now starting over Nico, and the bench is Rose, Shamet, Nico Portis, and Robin Lopez, adding even more depth. Next season comes around and it's more of the same. The team is good, but not quite good enough, as I think the Bucks and Raptors with Kawhi would beat this team in the playoffs. But what's interesting about this offseason is Robin Lopez's $14 million contract expires, which gives us $14 million in cap space, and then JJ Redick's contract expires as well, which is about $26 million in total. These are all rough figures, by the way. I didn't bother hammering out all the details. And on top of that, I'm trading Nico's $12 million a year along with a pick, which makes it $38 million in cap, and I'd use that to sign Kemba Walker. In Kemba Walker's position, he was just rejected a max contract from the Charlotte Hornets, so he wants to go to a team where he can compete as well as not be necessarily the lead option, giving him a bit of a break and not having to be just a complete carry job. And to me, I think Chicago is a better destination for Kemba in this hypothetical than the Boston Celtics were, though I could see it going either way. We bring back Rose and Portis on bird rights. Rose is a little bit cheaper because he didn't have as big of a role with us as he did the Timberwolves in this comeback season. And also, I'm going to give a contract to Nerlens Noel to replace Robin Lopez off of the bench. He's cheap as hell. Meaning the lineup is now Kemba, Holiday, Butler, OG, and Plumlee with Derrick Rose, Landry Shamet, Bobby Portis, and Nerlens Noel off of the bench. This team has 3 shot creators, all 3 can make a pass, and they have good shooting and some great defense. This team, I think, could beat the Bucks in the 2020 playoffs, and we obviously don't have to worry about the Heat because Jimmy Butler is no longer on the Miami Heat. So I think this team makes the finals like the Miami Heat did, but the question is this team better than that Miami Heat team? Well, I'd say the starting lineup is marginally better. Kemba is better than Dragic, Holiday is better than both Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, OG is better than Jay Crowder, and then obviously Plumlee isn't better than Bam Adebayo, but I think it's relatively in Chicago's favor, and I'd say the bench depth is better. Derrick Rose and Landry Shamet, I think, is mildly better shot creation than Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Hero. And that's not to mention the fact that Bobby Portis can give you 18 points on any given night. While on paper, this hypothetical Bulls team is more talented than the current day Miami Heat, the difference in favor of the Heat is the fact that they have the best coach in the league and a no-nonsense culture that leads to a play style on the court that rolls with the punches and keeps them in pretty much every game. In this hypothetical, where the Bulls keep Butler, this likely means that Fred Hoiberg is gone. Now, if they replace him with Jim Boylen, this all comes crumbling down. However, I don't think that would happen, though I would love to see Jimmy Butler tear Jim Boylen's fake tough guy persona a new asshole. However, if we assume they hire somebody just in the middle of the pack, which most coaches are, it doesn't impact much, and as a result, I think the Heat are better, and by association, I think the Bulls in this hypothetical lose the 2020 finals to the Los Angeles Lakers. That being said, not winning a championship in 3 years, giving it a true, honest effort, does not mean you just completely give up on the guy and give up on building around him. The Chicago Bulls did a piss-poor job rebuilding around Jimmy Butler with the bullshit Wade and Rondo experiment, and then they decided, well, that didn't work, so I guess we gotta trade him, even though Butler said he wanted to stay in Chicago, and he proved this year that he was that dude. Does this hypothetical actually get the Chicago Bulls a championship? Well, I do not know. However, what I do know is that it is better than what the Chicago Bulls are currently doing. At the very least, I wouldn't have an overwhelming urge to jump out of a 20-story window every time I turn on a Bulls game. But unfortunately, this Bulls front office has proved time and time again that they were not competent enough to put a good team around Butler in the first place. So honestly, it's a good thing the Jimmy Butler trade happened because they were never going to do anything with him. Wade and Rondo coming to Chicago was so stupid that I think it's pretty clear that they wouldn't have been able to orchestrate moves in the way that I did in this hypothetical, as I am obviously a genius internet GM, but really just knowing how to build a contender period, I just don't see Garpax having ever being able to do that. So if the Chicago Bulls kept Jimmy Butler, unfortunately I don't think it would be anything like the hypothetical I laid out. If anything, who's to say they're not going to bring back Wade and Rondo? I think they're dumb enough to try that again. Like, that was clearly the worst decision possible at that point, and yet they still would have done it. And I think if you need any evidence of that, just look at the fact that they hired hire Jim Boylan and then stuck to that hiring for months until they had to get replaced. All I can say is that I am glad Jimmy Butler found success outside of Chicago because he clearly was never going to find it here so long as Gar Forman and John Paxson were around. And I can say that I am very glad they're gone because maybe for once in my life as a fan, this franchise can head in a positive direction. If you want to support this content outside of just your like and subscription, I have a Patreon where you can go give me money for some extra content. Go watch my Uncharted 4 video on why it is the best game in the series. That is going to be linked in the description, the pinned comment, and in the card above. But that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.